Welcome to Heroic Herstories, Women in Medicine with the Katies. This podcast is to document the stories of women trailblazers in medicine in the state of Iowa. We will highlight seasoned women in medicine to create a brief oral history of their works and lives. We want to learn from their experiences, share their vast knowledge, and gain insight into the challenges they have faced. Our goal is to lift up those who have gone ahead of us and thank them for their incredible service and dedication in our wonderful field. Hi, Katie.
Hey, Katie. Today we are welcoming Dr. Isabella Grumbach. And although I've practiced her name, I can't get the beautiful sounds from the German language, so I apologize. But Dr. Grumbach, how would you like us to refer to you today?
Isabella.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Isabella before we get into our talk. So Isabella graduated from Ruhr University Medical School in Germany in 1992 with her MD, and then 1995 with her PhD. She completed her internal medicine residency and cardiology training in Germany, and then came to the United States in 1997 for a postdoc at the University of Illinois, Chicago. She completed her second internal medicine residency at Cook County Hospital in Chicago, and her second cardiology fellowship at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, in 2006. She's obviously one of the most overqualified physicians in the world, in my opinion. She then miraculously was recruited here to the University of Iowa in 2006, where she has had many leadership roles, mentoring roles in both clinical and research realms. And I just wanted to note that her mentoring spans high school students, undergraduates, post-bac, medical students, grad students. Amazing. Her CV is huge. Her research focus is on mitochondrial dysfunction and vascular disease, and also looking at radiation-induced micro and macrovascular disease. The numbers, for those people who like to count things out there, are impressive. 89 publications, 59 abstracts, 2 patents, and lots of R01 grants, which I'm no expert at research, but the R01s are the big ones, I think.
I've heard of those too.
We've heard of them. I'm impressed to have heard of them. That's a big deal. She's maintained her clinical work seeing patients on the cardiology consult team, the VA clinic, and in the cardio-oncology clinic. And most recently, she served as the interim chair and DEO of the Department of Internal Medicine here at Iowa. She was the first woman in 160 years to be in that office and have that role. And she is now moving to Oklahoma to become the chair of Department of Internal Medicine at the University of Oklahoma College of Medicine and clinical service chief at OU Health. Welcome, Isabella. We're so happy to have you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for this wonderful introduction.
Yeah, well, thank you for having an amazing CV that Katie had to dig through.
Exactly.
So we wanted to start, we have a lot of questions we want to get into with you because you've had a fascinating career. But first one we want to talk about is that you are about to change climates, right? So you're going from the upper Midwest chaotic climate to what it looks like it's a humid subtropical climate in East Central Oklahoma. I Googled it this morning. That's what it said, which sounds like an upgrade. So when we think about weather, if you could describe your personality in weather terms, what's the forecast?
The forecast is sunny with a few clouds and maybe a chance of a rain shower overnight.
Okay, overnight. I like that. So it's in the future. We have to watch out, but not right now.
Yeah, but I think rain is very important.
It is. That's true.
You need rain.
That's such a good point.
Especially here.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Farmers. Yeah. Well, Isabella, we usually like to start with, when we're talking about medical stuff, just the simple question of why did you choose to go into medicine in general? Start us off.
Coincidence. So I wanted to be a judge for a long time, right? And speak justice and be impartial and just and so forth. I think that was my early teenage years. And then for a while I wanted to be a pharmacist. And then I realized that being a pharmacist was probably not as exciting as I thought. And one fine day, it was maybe July or so, I went to my tennis lesson. right? And so the tennis coach was this guy who drove a golf convertible. I mean, these are the 80s. So he was kind of a super cool guy. And right, and so, I was kind of bespectacled and uncertain of myself. And so the wonderful tennis coach asked me about my report card. And so I should also say, so I was at a high school. He had been at, but he had been dismissed for something. I don't know what. So he asked me about school because he knew I was in this school. And I told him about my report card and said, have you considered becoming a doctor? And the answer is no, not really. No, I was thinking about being a pharmacist. So, so in next spring break was the time to go in shadow and get some professional experience. I was probably 11th grade. So Germany those days it still had 13 grades. 13 years in high school, in school, right? And you go to high school for a very long time there. So anyway, so I worked in a hospital and it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. So what I really liked about this was the combination of science. I loved biology. Biology was probably my favorite topic in school those years. And we had a fantastic teacher. And the ability to be with people and care for people and then, engage with them and support them during the hospital stay. And this is how I thought I want to become a doctor. And
I love this.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just like, this is amazing.
Yes. Well,
Well, I think for all of our learners who are listening, if a hot high school dropout tennis coach gives you advice, I think you need to take it. I think that's what we're learning.
You should listen.
You should take it because the rest is history.
Yeah. So
moral of the story.
Yeah. I mean, the tennis coach never found out, and I mean, very. And so surprisingly, my mother, right, who's 86 and now lives in the US, lives in Iowa City. So she asked me a few weeks ago, and I told her that story, and she hadn't heard that story before. So,
oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Yeah. So I mean, I did ask the biology teacher whether I should study something called human genetics, which was the new thing to do in Germany. He said, no, but you should rather become a doctor because you have this patient experience and it's just a more wholesome experience to be a doctor. And I thought he was right. Okay.
That's good advice, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, medical school is a very different experience in Germany. At least it was 20 years ago. I mean, we're talking more than 20 years ago. I've been in the US for 27 years. So 30 years ago. So 30 years ago it meant that you went to a classroom or actually a lecture hall with 250 other students and you bought this textbook that the professor recommended, which was very academic and not really learner friendly. And you listened to the lectures and tried to take some notes and try to memorize. And there was very, very little small group teaching or case presentations or anything of that sort. But so that was the experience in medical school, very different. And so in medical school, really what drove people in medical school was not really what happened in the classroom. In fact, I skipped many lectures. I probably shouldn't, right? Because I mean, I didn't think it was very beneficial. So what people really did, if they were into it, was either work in a hospital or do research, right? So do some PhD research project. And then 30 years ago, I mean, the shiny beacon on the hill for academic medicine, that was the US. So everybody wanted to take the US licensing exam. It was called FMGMS, kind of a precursor of USMLE. So what people did, if they were really ambitious and wanted to show off how smart they were, they ordered the books, right? You had to buy the books. They had to be shipped from the US. And then you had to go to the to the US embassy in Bonn, right? This is before the unification, and sit the exam there. So that's how I kind of heard about the US medical system. Right? I was told that this is the best thing in the world. This is the best system in the world. And this is 30 years ago. There was this book called The House of God.
Yeah.
Right, who works at who's graduated from the best medical school and works at the House of God. And of course, everybody in the medical field kind of knows what those names stand for. And so this person then worked there before there were any work hour restrictions, and he basically lived in the hospital. And it was the account of his first year of medical training. And so that was kind of my knowledge base when I first came to the US as an exchange student. And that was 1991.
Nice.
Yep.
And so, it sounds like that was what caught your attention in terms of coming to the States. And then when you came here,
Yeah.
you had to do another internal medicine residency and cardiology training at Emory.
Yeah.
So what did you was that daunting to you to think about that? Was that an argument against coming?
No. This was based on the experience I had as a medical student. As a medical student, I was at MUSC in Charleston. And I was there for 9 months, right? And I landed one day. I spoke British English. I basically had no clue. I had read the House of God. I didn't know what a CBC is or a SOAP note. And yeah, so I spent nine months there. And that was a really fantastic time. So that's when I learned about evidence-based medicine, small group teaching, students being on a team, being a team member. So I learned what it means to pre-round, and this actually matters what I do. So what I did as a student mattered. And that was such a great experience. So when I came back a few years later, I actually came back officially to be a postdoc, right, in a research lab, and we studied viral myocarditis and interferon signaling. I was at UIC, but I really came back thinking that I was going to stay here. And it was the experience in Charleston, of the pre-rounding and, being a medical student that actually taught me that this is the place to be, this is the place to stay. And so in my research time at Chicago, I met other physician scientists who had come from Europe. And so one of them, I haven't really talked to this person in 15 years, and I really should. I'm always thinking of, sitting down, writing an email. There was a Greek physician scientist, MD, PhD, who was junior faculty, and he basically said, if you want to be a physician scientist, this is the place to be. And why don't you stay? Why don't you just redo everything? And I mean, that's what he had done. And I mean, yeah, he made a very compelling case for just doing it again and staying.
So how was that, doing residency in Germany and then doing residency here in the US? Can you compare them a little bit for us?
Yeah, so it's a completely different experience. So in Germany, it's not really a training experience. You're being hired. You're called Assistenzarzt, which you're the assistant physician, and you can start on any day during the year. So I started on January 1. It's not really a training program. There's not really a curriculum or an in-service exam, and there also isn't really a teaching experience. It's a kind of you learn on the job experience.
It's an apprenticeship almost.
It's an apprenticeship, right? So on day 1, I showed up, and there was a senior resident. His name was Anselm Schaumann, and so he looked at me and he kind of realized that I'd done a lot of research and didn't know and didn't really have a lot of practical experience in the German system, also because I'd been in the US for the last year of medical school. So he put me to work. And I mean, so how does, at least those days, the physician's work day started by taking blood. There are no phlebotomists. So the physician goes around and, starts all the infusions and draws blood, and then you go to morning report, and then you start rounding and discharge patients. So it was a work experience. It was a good experience because there's a lot of wisdom in the system, and residency is much longer. So internal medicine is a 5-year training or work experience, in cardiology then is 1 additional year. But there are a lot of people who have been in the system for 7, 8, 9 years and are working, and they had a lot of experience. And you could definitely reach out to your friends and colleagues about what to do and how to handle things.
Sure.
A very different experience. And then we spent a whole year in the CCU ICU, so a whole year of critical care time.
Oh,
yes,
that's a tough year.
Yeah, great year to learn about cardiology. There were STEMIs and people who had complications of STEMIs who got flown into this university medical center where I was working. It was good. It was, I mean, you really learned how to deal with things pretty much with not a lot of supervision, at least at night. So at night you had to call if you needed help, and who wants to call after 6-7 months? So we learned a lot, we did a lot, we learned a lot, started lots of lines, lots of central lines, and yeah, good experience, but very different in style. So then in probably year 4, so I had this 3-month research award, and I came to the US and to work with this Greek physician scientist who told me to come back. And then about 6-7 months later, there's a good opportunity to go away from where I was living and working, Göttingen, which is right in the center of Germany. So medical school founded in, 1780. I mean, of course, the buildings aren't from 1780, but it's an old university, very, 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 very pretty, nice, nice quality of life. But I thought it was time to take a little break. And so I came back to Chicago. And then a year and a half after I started this postdoc time in Chicago, I went back to residency. What's residency like? Well, it was, of course, a completely different experience. So Cook County, you still used to be the old building, the one that you can see when you drive into Chicago on, what is it, 280? So it's to the right, this enormous building. Now it's condos. Those days it was certainly not as pretty on the inside. Right, so the wards had 20 beds with patients in beds with a curtain around them, really old style. But really, the challenge and the opportunity were actually two. So the first one was working with other physicians from everywhere around the globe. And so there were physicians from India who had already worked as cardiologists coming back to the US to retrain. There were people from Thailand, from Taiwan, from Ghana, from South Africa, from Nigeria, from Egypt, really from anywhere. And a few Europeans, but mostly people from around the world who had trained in really different scenarios, very often in a system which was influenced by the British system. I mean, the US system also has some aspects of this. So there are some really, really fantastic clinicians who had already, worked independently as physicians in their home country. And so it was this mix of people, this mix of these different backgrounds. And there were some wonderful, wonderful teachers. I think you work at Cook County because you want to be a teacher. And they had fantastic teachers. Humble, incredibly knowledgeable, very organized, very structured. So we did learn a lot. It was amazing. And then the second part, of course, are the patients. You do see about everything. Just the most incredible diseases. Some of us from people who wanted to get a second opinion. So, for example, at some point I remember seeing a patient who had Eisenmengers. And so this is somebody who had a large, actually had a primum ASD and was in her 50s or so. And she came from, I believe, Thailand, and her family wanted to get a second opinion. Some really incredible cases. And many patients were also very, very grateful. So it was a wonderful experience. It was tough, yes. The ER was always full, and we were always on overflow, and we were always at any time of the day. We were more patients than we could possibly take care of. But great experience.
One thing that Katie and I were talking about before this is just our amazing amount of respect for our residents and trainees who have gone through training in other countries. And, I'm staffing, with residents who have already done cardiology fellowships and have been practicing cardiologists. And I'm like, how about you look at this EKG? Was that challenging then? Like when you are more experienced than some of your attendings,
No, because many attendings had this experience before, that I had to work with a resident who already had trained before. But it was this mix of interests and backgrounds. So I had a friend, still friends with, who was really interested in hematology, oncology, and came from Iran, and completely different background and experience, but it was rewarding to learn. And yeah, it was really an incomparable experience, no doubt. Yeah.
So when we think about like our physician workforce and your experience training when you came here, what are the pros and cons of physicians coming from other countries and having them required to do that training experience? What do you see as the pros and cons based on your experience?
I think it really is. I'm not sure I would necessarily look at it this way. I think it's a personal decision to come here and be willing to take the risk of starting over. I think it does require a bit of courage. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say I was the most courageous person here, but for some, it really meant leaving everything behind at home.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it requires a ton of courage on your part.
Yeah, when you can ever go home and whether you will succeed here.
And from a system perspective, do you feel like that was something you needed in order to be able to practice here, or did you feel like it was time that could have been better spent in practice?
It's better spent in Germany. Well,
No, here. Like, do you think like in the future, as we're thinking about how do we support our current physician workforce, and if somebody is ready to immigrate, do we say, well, you have to do this residency, or do you think it's better? What do you think are the benefits of doing that?
So I do think that, I personally, I learned a ton. I learned lots of things which I really couldn't learn from reading the textbook in Germany. So, and also it's this unifier, calculating an anion gap and going over the differential of anion gap versus non-anion gap acidosis, right? So if metabolic acidosis, I think these are really the unifiers where we all where everybody settles at about the same level, or everybody is taught at the same level. I think it may be necessary.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Learn the same curriculum for a few years. Mm-hmm. Because then going out, you would expect your doctor, regardless of whether the doctor comes from to manage hypertension or hyperlipidemia along the same principles.
Sure.
Out of curiosity, I've heard you just mention a couple of co-interns and some other researchers you've worked with. How many women were, around in your medical school class? And, I was just in residency and in your training about.
Oh God, that's different. That's hard. I don't remember, honestly. I don't remember. Maybe not 50%. In residency, so it was an internal medicine cardiology residency. So it gets combined in Germany into one. There were fewer women than men. There were far more men than, I don't know, I would probably say 70-30 maybe.
Okay.
If not 80-20. There were differences between the different subspecialties of internal medicine to some extent, but I think overall there were more men than women. And again, we're talking 30 years ago.
Another thing that jumps out on your CV is your mentorship, as we mentioned before, like your commitment and efforts towards being a mentor. And, as a female cardiologist, I'm sure that leads to a lot of people wanting to work with you as a mentor, specifically because of that, wanting to meet with you, wanting to ask you questions, get letters.
Yes.
So what's been your approach to developing your skills as a mentor? And what has that added to your career?
I would find it hard to be in private practice and not have this aspect of my work. And I think it's you mentor everywhere, whether it's on the ward, whether it's talking to people in the admin suite. There are just so many different flavors of mentoring. In the lab, it's helping people develop a project and learn how to think about a project. So what does it take to have a kind of body of data which can be written up as a paper? What makes it interesting? what can we learn in general about biology or about medicine? And when there's also the aspect of the personal development. So where do people want to go with this? And how does this add up to their trajectory in life? So not all of these discussions are wonderful or are always just positive. So just today I had a discussion with one of my postdocs about where he wants to go. Does he really want to try to become independent scientist, or are his strength more on the technical side, and what's the right pathway to go? So I've learned to be relatively adaptable, try to ask questions, not be the mother of everyone. So I give people the opportunity to become independent. This works well with some people, with others it doesn't. And also try to challenge people a little bit, because there's a lot of talent. People have, people who work with, they have lots of strength and talents, and I think sometimes it takes a little bit to challenge and say, I don't know, I think we can do more. We could try something bigger. We could dream bigger. And it's okay if things don't work out, but at least let's give it a try, and not shy away from taking a little risk every once in a while. Because we're in a very safe environment. If the experiment doesn't work out, okay, fine. Yes. If this idea turns out to be nonsense, okay, but at least we try it. So, yeah. And so the beauty of medicine is, internal medicine also maybe is that there's something for everyone.
Agreed.
Right? So you can be a pathologist. Well, if interacting with people is not your greatest gem, but if you like, sitting at a microscope, or if interactions are important, when do you like kids? Do you want to be a surgeon? Do you like the thrill of being in the ICU every day? I mean, I think there are just so many opportunities, and it's just a matter of finding something that works.
One opportunity that we saw for you was the VA. I mean, it looked like that was a big part of your career development.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just curious, coming from Germany, the VA has its own culture. And I was just kind of curious, what you learned from the VA as a system, and, about being a leader there too.
Yeah, there's no equivalent to the VA anywhere, that's for sure. So the VA gave me an opportunity, the opportunity to stay here, right? So I had this J1 visa, which many foreign medical graduates have, and it's a headache if you want to stay in the US, which is what most people actually end up wanting to do. And I mean, there's enough demand in open positions. So the VA was one of the opportunities of getting this visa waiver, and it comes with a commitment to work at the VA. So, I mean, you probably remember from your early days at Iowa that cardiologists attended on the teaching service. So we did general internal medicine. So I came here. I think I'd been here for a month, and I was the attending on the vet team.
Mm-hmm.
It was my very first experience as a staff, and it was there were plenty of opportunities to teach, right? So you had all these interactions with learners at different levels, the students, the interns, the fellows. So I remember, I walked into the room, and there was a medical student who was from Solon. I think he went into family medicine, and he said, well, he was still learning. And I said, well, we're all still learning every day.
Yes.
Fine, you're just great. And so that's what we did. We learned together. And so at the VA, you probably know how our VA runs. In those days, there was one cardiologist at the VA. So so on day 20 of my tenure as a faculty member, I was the cardiologist at the VA, trying to give experts advice on all kinds of questions. So it was a beautiful time of feeling challenged. And when you come out of fellowship, you're really, I think, at the peak of your general knowledge about cardiology. So I had lots of opportunities to apply my knowledge, and it was yeah, it was sometimes a bit challenging, but it's also a great opportunity. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, the VA cardiologist came over to round on the consult service, the university consult service, right, with a fellow, and there was a different fellow every day. Yeah. And so we have this list of these, 10 patients that I'd never seen. The fellow probably hadn't seen either and didn't know very well. Well, I mean, it was again, so that's how we did it 19 years ago. And so we went out and we did some expert cardiology for a few hours on weekends. There were weekends when we didn't go home very early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's fantastic pathophysiology, and we got asked lots of questions from surgeons, and it's a lot of decision making. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, those weekends do sound enjoyable. They sound
I
great.
was like, I think you have like one of the most positive outlooks. That's
On weekend rounding.
I just finished my weekend. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
feeling great about it. Learned a ton.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
But the fellows were fun. I remember, I could give you some names of people I worked with all these years ago. When we rounded and we enjoyed ourselves, right? We went to the surgical ICU and tried to give the best recommendations that we could come up with. And I think we overall did a really nice job because it was interesting.
I mean, and that's, we all do this job because we love how the learners, sort of are rejuvenating and give you, perspective and remind you what it's like to see your first case of whatever, or to be, have your first chance to do something. And that is energizing. And throughout your sort of progress through your career at Iowa since you got here has been meteoric, right? You were an assistant professor in not even 20 years ago. And now you've been the chair of medicine here, and now you're taking on another chairmanship. And so, I guess my question is, you obviously have given blood, sweat, and tears to the cardiology service and the Department of Medicine. How do you balance that with life outside the hospital? Or what's your approach when somebody asks you about work-life balance, which it means different things to different people? What's your approach to that?
So I'm not sure there's balance. I would call this work-life integration. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not I'm not a master at this balance or integration. And I find it difficult to let go when I come home. I find it difficult to let go of, whatever happened that day. So there are many different ways to do it, to think about this. But I do try to sometimes combine, let's say, I volunteer for something which has something to do with work, and I find it enjoyable because I get to meet more people. And also I need some time where I just disengage, honestly, for a few hours every weekend. For a while, I was more active in my front yard. So Saturdays, just pulling weeds. That was just nice. I could listen to a podcast and not worry about anything.
What podcast do you listen to?
The Hidden Brain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, of course, I should probably do this far more often. I listen to some cardiology podcasts about the new studies, but listen to a podcast about something else. And there's some really, really good leadership podcasts from, the Harvard Business Review and lots of other opportunities to just listen to some wise person talk about how to do things really well, which, I'm struggling with and could be doing a lot better. But yes. I find it difficult to find this balance. But I would say that in Iowa City, it is easy because life is so easy. You can just do a farmer's market on Saturday mornings, or it's easy enough to walk over to Henshaw or just go for a walk, or, all these opportunities are just so easy and look so seamless.
I mean, it sounds like you just really love your job. Like you really love what you do, which helps.
Yeah, yes. And of course, there are days when I really don't like what I do, but I think I've been willing to take on challenges and I've had really good advice. And so what really brought me to Iowa is I thought that the people were really interested in my success. They really meant it. And so you may remember Mark Anderson, who was the division director when I came. I think I was about the second person he recruited. So Mark did a few things really well. So he recruited a number of physician scientists at the same time, and he put us in this area close to his lab. And we were in different areas. So some people studied arrhythmias, and others heart failure, and the third person was interested in new RNA technologies. And so we had something in common, which was we're all starting out at the same time. We were not in direct competition because our areas didn't completely overlap or just barely overlap. But there was this healthy competition among us about who's going to have the first paper out, who's going to get a grant, who has a postdoc, who's on a training grant. So that was actually really helpful. Not only because of a competition side, but also because there's a lot of advice. So I could just go to the person in the lab across who was maybe 2 years ahead of us. So he's a little more senior, and I could just go and say, Pete, how do I go about something? And he usually had a brief 5-minute answer. So it was this cohesion of his scope, having this leader, but also having cohesion within the scope. And that's very, very effective. And so, Dale Abel did something similar for junior faculty in the Diabetes Center. And as I'm going on to Oklahoma, I'm thinking of using this kind of approach to bring young researchers together, because this is really helpful. So there was this part. So the other part, and Mark did really well. He actually came and talked to me, and he said, my success, his success, depends on Isabella's success. And he just said, so I will be judged by how well you do. And so I kind of, I did remember this over the years. That this is a really important concept of being a leader. So it's not about my success, but first and foremost, it's about the success of the people who work with me. And then, so about a year into my time as faculty, he called me up and he sat me down. He said, I think you should become an associate program director, because this is a typical career pathway for a physician scientist. It combines well with research. And so that's how I started being an administrator. And really being an administrator is also, there's a lot of training and a lot of wisdom which you pick up over the years. And, I have a great fortune to work with other people who did a lovely job. Paul Lindauer, who I understand is now retiring. He was the program director when I became the associate program director. So there's a lot to learn about how to approach people, how to figure out what's important in a training program, how to run it, and also how to respond to problems and crises.
You mentioned your impending chairmanship at Oklahoma. The current chair who you're taking over from has been there for 25 years.
Yes.
Which says a lot about the stability and strength of that department. Which is great. What do you see as the challenges and opportunities of taking over for somebody who's been in place that long?
Well, the challenge is that everybody is used to one style of leadership.
Sure.
And I do understand that some people are a little apprehensive about the new chair coming in who might change everything. Now, of course, a new chair doesn't walk in and changes everything. It's going to be a matter of learning the culture. But I will spend some time on learning the culture, because I can tell that the interactions are, they're really ingrained, and there will be a lot of opportunities to make some changes. What are the opportunities? Well, it's a department which, like so many departments of medicine, has drifted a little apart for COVID and, meeting by Zoom, and the clinic is far away from the hospital. It's not in the same building. So, I mean, I can tell that the faculty members don't intersect as much as they used to. So bringing them back through communications, and that's something which I think Iowa has been really, really good at for a number of years. And this is really also um, really been fostered by a number of different chairs to have this communication where the chair writes to the faculty every other week, and where there's a forum for faculty to come in and talk to the chair directly and leave some feedback. And so there are opportunities for community building. And with this also comes more of a social media presence. It's a successful department, but people don't really talk about their success. And I think that's one of the aspects where internal medicine really has excelled at Iowa. And so I'm going to try to bring some of this culture shift with me. And then Iowa needs to recruit people all the time. Oklahoma needs to recruit even more people. So it's going to be a matter of creating this narrative of who are we in this department? What do we do well? What are our values? And why is it important to come and work with us?
Speaking of who you are, we saw that the executive dean of the College of Medicine at the University of Oklahoma called you a bona fide triple threat physician, scientist, and leader. Woo. Which, I mean, it's very clear to us. Yeah. I mean, what does that mean to you? And did you set out to be a triple threat when you were told by your tennis coach that you should be a doctor? I'm kidding. But
No.
thinking about your career.
No, but let me just say that, I've never really, maybe I should have, I've never really considered being a private practice doctor. I mean, I do see, as I go older, I can see the advantages of being, in charge of your own practice a little more in private practice. At least you may be, and but it never really occurred to me that this is what I wanted. I really believe that the beauty of this job is to at least every once in a while have time to think and read up and go and talk to a colleague about a case, and so have this conversation about medicine and about treatments, and maybe even also think about what's worth investigating. So I think this does all belong together. I've also lived not very happily with the sense that when you're a physician scientist, you're not as experienced as the full-time clinicians who just see more cases, have more exposure, and maybe also develop more of a clinical mindset. And when you're in the lab, you feel that. So when I was on service at the VA, I was thinking, I'm not spending as much time as a PhD scientist in the lab, and that's not good. And when I'm in the lab, I'm thinking, it would be good to see more patients. So this balance is really difficult to find. And so this is in part why I became interested in cardio-oncology. So I'm a general cardiologist, I'm reading echoes, and this is all wonderful. And it did have something to do with the research I was doing. But I realized that as a cardio-oncologist, I could see patients in exactly the area I'm studying. That I'm studying. And so this cardio-oncology research didn't necessarily completely develop the way I thought it was. So I was interested in studying tyrosine kinase inhibitors, because we study tyrosine kinase signaling in the lab, and I thought, this is a great fit. That's going to be just one unit of experience, clinical and research-wise. And it's not quite how this worked out. And so what we're really studying is radiation-induced vascular injury. And but I noticed that when I talk to trainees about this area of research versus the more traditional area of research where I started out, could really tell that it has a difference in how excited I am and how easy it is to make other people excited. So that's really been an indicator for me to really go into this cardio-oncology and radiation side effect research area.
Love it. All right. we were going to go to our rapid fire questions.
Oh,
All
my.
right. Prepare yourself. I know it's exciting. First, we don't know if you have any hours left in your day, but I'm just curious, what's something that you like to do when you're not here at the hospital or in the lab?
Go for a walk, play with a cat. So my mother moved here from Germany at the age of 86. So we make dinner together. So that's pretty nice. And then also exploring the area outside of Iowa City. It's just so pretty.
Do you have a favorite spot to go to?
Yes. And maybe Wilson's Orchard.
Yeah,
Oh, love it.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've really grown so much. Like when I was growing up here, it was really just the orchard, but now it's like year round. They have something going on there, which is really cool. If you could go back on your first day of internship and talk to yourself, what would you say?
I don't know. Okay, right? I think I was so afraid, and my stress levels were just so through the roof. Yeah.
So you'd say, chill out. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, it's gonna be okay.
That's probably good for every intern first day.
Right?
That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
How about what is one thing in internal medicine that grosses you out?
Is that do Germans get grossed out?
No.
That's what I thought. Maybe that's just not a cultural translation.
No. Yeah.
You're not.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Aren't yours eyeballs, Katie?
Oh.
You don't like the eyeballs.
Yeah.
No, sputum.
The epic inbox.
That's perfect.
Yes, that is gross. I agree. Terrifying gross. What about menopause? So this extends into every sector of medicine at this point, and we are all told many times on all of our podcasts that we're not telling people enough about menopause. So what have you sort of taken home about menopause from reading or listening or from a cardiology perspective that you could share with our listeners?
Oh, you mean personal experience?
That'd be fine.
You can include whatever you want.
Yeah,
We
whatever
just
you
want to
want.
talk about menopause.
It's an open-ended question.
I think it's quite an experience to break out in a sweat and in the middle of the day without any warning in the least convenient situations. It's like
Yes.
That is an experience.
yeah. And I mean, I'm just keep talking as if nothing had happened. And
Again, you're very tough.
One thing I was just curious about, when you're working with patients or with learners, do you go by doctor or go by your first name?
I think I usually go by doctor, and then however you pronounce the last name, it's fine. I know it's me. It's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, if your patient calls me Dr. Isabella, that is just fine. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Any embarrassing situations that you can think about that you can share with us that you can laugh about now, like passing out in the OR or something like that?
Oh God. Passing out in the OR. No, I think I haven't passed out in the OR.
Katie dropped her pager in the toilet. That would be an example.
I did.
No.
And I had to sit down in the OR.
I have one I can share. So I was a first year cardiology fellow, right? And so you write the notes for, the pre-procedure notes, and it included shaving the groin. And it was for a patient who got a pacemaker.
Oh, so they were like, why were you doing that?
Yeah. And the next day,
Where did you put the pacemaker?
so sorry. Yes.
They'd have to charge extra for that. I think that's an added charge.
Right? It's like a
shave.
spa charge.
Yeah, that's right.
How about favorite hospital cafeteria item? Food or beverage?
You mean University of Iowa Healthcare?
Or Cook County?
So my favorite item is there are cans of, speaking of Wilson's Orchard, this is really just a coincidence. You can buy the cider, right? The non-alcoholic cider, but you can also get flavored sparkling water, and it has caffeine in it, and it has more. It is so much caffeine in it. It's like oof.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate your time today, and it's been
Thank
really
you.
fun talking with you and hearing about your journey. We're really honored that you took time out of the last few hours you're spending at Iowa to
Last
spend with us.
last
So
month.
we're really excited about it.
Well, this hour went very fast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And people can listen to this podcast once we get it out on all the different platforms. And we'll tell you too, wherever you are, we'll let you know when this
Yeah,
is going to be
that's right.
put out into the atmosphere or whatever.
It'll be on the top of the charts in Oklahoma, I bet.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much, Isabella.
Thank
It was
you.
so great.
Well, that was fun.
So fun. I was so nervous, but she's
I was-
so nice.
Yeah, we really shouldn't be allowed to talk to so many chairs of medicine. Like, I don't think we got clearance from anybody, but it's been just a pleasure.
It really was. I was like, I really want to go just sit and drink some cider with her.
I
Although
know.
the caffeine might just fire me up a little bit too
Yeah,
much.
you should not have that caffeine. Maybe a decaf version, just the plain cider.
Can we just go back to the tennis guy in the convertible who dropped out of high school that started this? Unbelievable.
That is an origin story for the ages. That's
And
amazing.
her mom had no idea until very recently.
Yeah.
I just
imagine if one of your daughters came home and said, I got some amazing career advice from my tennis coach. He's cute, didn't finish high school, but he said that I should be a doctor. I mean, you'd probably be like, okay, doctor, that sounds good. But I mean, that could have gone a lot of ways.
Oh, I would have called the police. I will. I will. Claire, if you're listening, call the police.
But in her case, I mean, it turned out great.
My gosh. And just look at just everything she's done. It's just, and I just love getting to hear about her training in Germany versus here. And wow, just everything she brings to the table everywhere she goes. It's just so amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, should we hear about some,
historical women in medicine. And I'm a little nervous that you're going to call me out on this because I'm not picking just one woman. I'm picking a group. And
groups of women are my favorite, actually.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point. Good point. I'm actually picking this because of a book I just finished reading called The Women. And before I get into that, can I just talk about how woman and women in English, that's a very weird change, right?
I agree.
Woman.
You change that O, how you say the O.
Yeah, exactly. It's really strange. Okay, but I'll keep going. The Women. So this is a historical fiction novel about women serving in the Vietnam War as nurses. And I just tremendously enjoyed this book. And after reading it, I'm still just thinking about all that these women went through, helped with all of our soldiers and the citizens in Vietnam. And in circumstances I really don't think we could even fathom, reading through this book and then reading some things, from the US Army and their life, the women talking about their experiences. It's just unfathomable to me. And then to return home and basically be shamed and spat upon for their service to the country. And I read through the US Army website detailing their stories, and they were the youngest nurses sent to war, mostly younger than 25 years old. One person in particular named Diane Carlson Evans served as captain and nurse in the Army, and she actually attended the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which wasn't there until 1982, it should be noted. But that actually started her path to healing, she said. And at that time, she also noted that there's no mention of women who served in Vietnam. And that began, she said, her next battle. So the next 10 years, she battled to honor the women of the Vietnam War. And in 1993, the Vietnam Women's Memorial was unveiled. And that's the first monument to honor the efforts of military women at the National Mall. And I mean, talk about trailblazers in medicine. I was just like, I had to honor them for honor and thank them for everything that they've done. It was just truly unbelievable to me.
In that book, it sounds much more like advice that a high high school dropout tennis coach would give, like, join the army as a nurse.
Yeah.
Because I felt that part of the story, obviously it's a fictionalized account based on people's experiences, but when that whole part where she was like, yeah, I'm gonna, she's reacting to her loss of her brother and all that, and she enlists in the army and is gone, I was like, whoa. Oh,
Yeah.
just like empathizing with her parents, who I know were kind of like not the heroes of the story, but just thinking like, at that time, like, your kid is just going halfway around the world to a war that was tearing the country apart.
Yes.
And the thought of being her parents in that situation, and then the thought of, like you're saying, how even the people like in her own family who she was closest to didn't recognize what she gave up or what she was experiencing while she was there.
Absolutely.
Really got me. The other part that really resonated with me was when she went to the VA, when she was clearly struggling with significant PTSD and depression, which I thought her description of the experience of PTSD really resonated with what I've heard veterans talk about, like the way that they feel. And when she goes and she tries to get help and they say, well, there were no women in Vietnam. And I was like, I can imagine that happening, like, I think that is probably a very real experience shared with her by women veterans, just because of the way that even the Veterans Administration, who was set up to support them, really didn't acknowledge their service right away,
Yeah. Well, and Katie, thank you for your service too. You serve the veterans quite often in your practice, which is pretty amazing.
I love the VA, and that's why I was really excited about Isabella's CV and listening to her talk about it, because I just thought, what a ride it must have been to show up from Germany and stop at Cook County and then spend so much time at the VA. I'm like, those are some American institutions that would be very, I think, jarring coming from somewhere else. But I think the VA is an amazing medical system, and I think we do a good job taking care of patients and training learners, and so I'm really proud to be a part of it. But I think it's important to acknowledge those times where veterans are not, we haven't lived up to President Lincoln's call, and that the women is definitely an example of that. The character's experience in the women is definitely that, for sure.
Yeah. So the women, sorry, I didn't say it's by Kristen Hanna, an author that I love, but so that wraps up our day. Yeah, Katie?
I think so. That was fun.
It was so fun. And so have we gotten to like 20 listeners? I don't know. We'll just pretend. We're going to pretend there are going to be 20 listeners at this point. They can listen on all the different platforms and watch on YouTube. So excited.
We're on YouTube.
All right, Katie. So until next time, goodbye, Katie.
Goodbye, Katie.